This is an AI-generated deep dive based on the original German transcript of the Mr. Futsal podcast, episode 227. The title of the episode is The Country Needs Futsal Courts, Döner-Gate at the DFB Mega-Futsal in Orlando Icon League in Futsal. The original podcast is hosted by Sebastian Rauch and Dr. Daniel Weimar.
So we're jumping right into the recent conversations from our original hosts, and it's kind of funny because they are currently living out two completely different versions of a summer break.
Oh, for sure. It's like night and day.
Right. Like Sebastian is basically calling himself an Epicurean right now. He's just, chilling in his garden, soaking up the sun, totally unwinding.
Yeah, he's fully embracing the downtime. But then you have Daniel, who is just relentlessly pacing around. I mean, he's constantly refreshing his feeds, desperately waiting for, any Bundesliga news to drop.
It's that classic off-season anxiety.
Exactly. You want to rest, but you're terrified of losing momentum.
Yeah, and even Sebastian's relaxation has this little caveat to it. Like, they just wrapped up their final U19 Regional Talent Center training before this 4-week break they have.
Right.
But before they took the break, they went out of their way to secure access to the FC Gütersloh Hall through a partnership.
Yeah, so they're unplugging, but they are absolutely keeping the machinery plugged in, just in case.
Which, frankly, is a huge luxury. I mean, having that infrastructure available when you need it is such a stark contrast to the massive international news they drop right at the start of their discussion.
Oh, you're talking about the Riga situation.
Yeah, exactly. Riga, the Latvian futsal club, they aren't just, taking a summer break. They are shutting down their entire futsal department and withdrawing from the Latvian league.
It's wild. I mean, the collapse of Riga is just a textbook example of this sugar daddy economic model completely failing in a niche sport.
Yeah.
Because, just a couple of years ago, this was the club that shocked the entire futsal world by signing Ricardinho.
Right, the guy who is widely considered the greatest of all time.
Exactly. They brought him in with this massive suitcase of cash. And now, a few years later, they just vaporize.
But, okay, I want to push back on the framing of this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Because when a club in a developing market buys a massive player like Ricardinho, the narrative is always that they overextended themselves.
Sure.
But isn't that high-risk spending almost necessary if you want to scale? I mean, if you don't buy a massive star, you don't get the international eyeballs, right? You don't sell the jerseys, and basically nobody watches.
That's a fair point.
It feels like this vicious cycle where you have to spend money you literally don't have just to prove you deserve to exist.
Well, and that is the exact trap they fall into. Because the mechanism of revenue in a niche sport is fundamentally different from, mainstream football.
Right.
Riga doesn't have these massive guaranteed television broadcast rights to cushion their spending. So when they bring in a star like Ricardinho on this huge contract, the gate receipts and the local merch sales are never going to cover that cost.
Yeah, it's just basic math at that point.
Exactly. So the operational budget becomes entirely dependent on a single wealthy benefactor or, one primary corporate sponsor.
And if that sponsor wakes up on the wrong side of the bed...
Yep. If they get bored or they face a bad fiscal quarter or they just pull out, the club doesn't just downsize. It literally ceases to exist overnight.
It's like, I don't know, it's like buying a Ferrari when you can't even afford the electricity bill for the garage you park it in.
That is the perfect analogy for it.
Which brings us to Boa Vista Porto in Portugal.
Cool.
Because they are also closing their futsal division, but for a slightly different reason, right?
Yeah, the Boa Vista situation really highlights the danger of absentee ownership and specifically the integrated club model. They are shutting down their futsal operations because the parent football club is facing severe financial distress. And that is largely driven by their owner, Gerard Lopez.
Wait, isn't that the same Gerard Lopez who notoriously drove Girondins de Bordeaux into the ground in France?
The exact same guy.
Yeah.
He drove that historic French club into such deep financial ruin that they lost their professional status entirely.
Oh, wow. That is just tragic.
It really is. And it shows that when a specialized department, like futsal, is just a tiny branch on the tree of a massive football organization, it is always the first limb that gets chopped off when the trunk starts rotting.
Yeah, they just cut the dead weight from their perspective.
Exactly. These aren't just isolated bad business deals. They are structural warnings about how precarious professional futsal actually is in Europe right now.
Right, so let's contrast that super precarious, transient European model with what is happening over in Brazil. Because the hosts bring up Rodrigo Capita, the 42-year-old Brazilian futsal legend.
Oh, that picture he posted.
Yes. He recently posted this jaw-dropping picture on his social media. It's just him sitting in the middle of a literal sea of silver and gold. I mean, it's over 50 major trophies.
It's an unbelievable visual.
It really is. But the fascinating part isn't even the medal itself. It's the geography of his success.
Right, because Rodrigo built that staggering legacy almost entirely within Brazil.
Yeah.
He wasn't jumping from Latvia to Portugal to Russia just chasing temporary paychecks.
No, he stayed put.
Yeah, he navigated Brazil's deeply layered, super complex domestic ecosystem. We are talking about state leagues, regional championships, summer tournaments, and winter leagues.
It sounds exhausting, honestly.
Oh, it's an absolutely grueling year-round schedule.
Mm.
But the key is that it's built on a foundation of deeply rooted local fan bases and real institutional stability.
Right.
And that stability allows a player to become a generational icon in a way that is actually sustainable.
Yeah, it's the ultimate traditional pathway, which honestly makes the pivot to the American approach to futsal so incredibly jarring.
Oh, the Orlando tournament.
Yes, we need to talk about this World Futsal Championship that just happened in Orlando, Florida.
It was such a bizarre setup. It was heavily promoted by BR Futsal, which is this Brazilian influencer account with around 1.5 million followers.
Okay, huge reach.
Massive reach. And the Brazilian team, Vasco da Gama, ultimately took home the $50,000 prize. But the actual format of this tournament is what we really need to analyze here.
Yeah, so for everyone listening, just put yourself in this venue for a second. You walk into this massive cavernous convention center.
Right.
There is no stadium seating. There's no intimate atmosphere at all. It's literally just 21 futsal courts laid out side by side on a concrete floor.
It's mind-boggling.
It is.
Oh.
And they threw 120 teams into this echoing void. And get this, roughly 100 of those were children's teams.
Wow.
So you have 8-year-olds playing their matches in the exact same chaotic, noisy space as, like, 39-year-old aging European stars like Magellan, who they flew in specifically for the event.
It's so weird mix. But the underlying logic of this event is actually fascinating because it is entirely optimized for the modern attention economy.
How do you mean?
Well, it is not designed for the in-person spectator at all. It is a content factory.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, by having 21 courts running simultaneously, you maximize the mathematical probability of capturing a viral moment.
Right, you're basically casting a massive net.
Exactly. You're trying to catch a crazy goal, a flashy skill, or a recognizable star interacting with a kid. So the physical space is chaotic, but the digital output is highly monetizable.
Okay, but as a listener, I have to ask you to weigh in on this. Does that kind of proximity actually build better players?
That's the real question.
Because I look at that 21-court circus, and I just wonder if it's a brilliant way to cross-pollinate youth futsal with the pros, or if it's just a sensory overload gimmick.
It definitely leans toward gimmick.
Right, especially when you compare it to the European University Games, the EUG, which was happening simultaneously in Salerno, Italy. The contrast is just night and day.
Completely. The EUG represents the very traditional institutional European pathway. It is essentially a mini Olympics encompassing 13 different sports.
Right.
But look at how they allocate their resources.
Yeah.
Beach handball gets 3 match days, while futsal is given massive priority with 8 full match days.
Wow, 8 days. And the German university teams were right in the thick of that grind, right?
Oh, yeah. The Münster women's team completely dominated Group A.
Nice.
And meanwhile, the men's teams from Münster and Mainz were enduring these incredibly wild, disparate matchups.
What kind of matchups?
We had a team from Cyprus that conceded 37 goals in 2 games without scoring once.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, and they're playing alongside highly disciplined, physically imposing teams from Ukraine.
And we should mention the barrier to entry here, too. The athletes are paying a hefty €850 base entry fee just for the privilege of competing.
Exactly. The EUG isn't about capturing a viral 30-second clip for Instagram.
No.
It requires immense physical stamina over an 8-day period, real tactical discipline, and just a deep commitment to the traditional competitive structure.
Yeah, and that friction between, influencer-driven spectacles and traditional grueling structures, it isn't just an international debate anymore.
No, it's hitting close to home.
Right. It is actively reshaping the German domestic leagues right now. The hosts dive into this incredible storyline of the Berlin underdogs.
Yes, the Berlin underdogs.
Yeah.
So They are a product of the Icon League.
And for context, for you listening, the Icon League is one of these massive influencer-led indoor football formats, right?
Exactly. They use small-sided pitches, specialized rules designed to increase scoring, and they rely super heavily on the digital reach of internet personalities to draw viewership.
Basically built for TikTok and YouTube.
Exactly. But the underdogs have made this radical move. They're officially entering the traditional Regionalliga Nordost.
Which is wild. They are stepping out of the bespoke, camera-friendly influencer bubble and entering a sanctioned regional tier of German futsal.
Yeah, they want intense, legitimate competitive practice.
Oh, but the mechanism of them doing this is causing absolute chaos for the established clubs because they are bleeding traditional talent dry.
Oh, the player movement is massive. We are seeing an established club like Liria suddenly losing 4 key pieces of their roster.
Wow.
Yeah, players like Fabian Schultz, Sidious, and the Smith brothers, who are rumored to be heading to Hohenstein.
And while traditional clubs are losing players, the underdogs are just vacuuming up serious talent.
Oh, yeah. They're pulling in Pavel Wiegels, they're grabbing the Arifa brothers out of MCH Bielefeld, and they're even bringing former German national players like Jonas Hoffmann and Stefan Winkel back to the sport.
So what is the tactical draw here? Like, why would a player leave a traditional club for a team born on the internet?
It all comes down to the currency of visibility.
Okay.
Traditional regional clubs often struggle to offer players significant financial compensation or broad exposure. But an entity like the Berlin Underdogs comes with built-in digital momentum.
Right, because of the influencer connection.
Exactly. Even if they are playing in the exact same traditional regional liga, the gravitational pull of their origins means more eyeballs, better highlight distribution, and a much more modern brand identity.
So they are basically leveraging their digital capital to instantly construct a highly competitive roster in the real physical world.
That's exactly what they're doing.
Man, that collision between modern branding and traditional bureaucracy perfectly sets up my absolute favorite story from this deep dive.
Yeah.
We have to unpack Döner-Gate.
Oh, Döner-Gate. It is a masterclass in the unintended consequences of grassroots enthusiasm meeting corporate legal structures.
It's so good. Okay, so here is how it unfolded. You have PCF Mulheim, right? A local futsal club trying to climb the ranks.
Yeah.
And one of their players, Ibrahim Akaya, happens to own a local kebab shop called Döner Brothers, so he decides to step up and sponsor his own team.
Which is great.
It is. It is a beautiful, authentic piece of grassroots support. But then Döner Brothers posts on their social media that they are an official sponsor of the DFB Futsal Bundesliga.
Oh, and the DFB, the German Football Association, they reacted with absolute legal force.
They didn't mess around.
No, they aggressively cracked down. They forced the kebab shop to alter the post and issued stern warnings about trademark infringement.
Now, on the surface, this feels incredibly heavy-handed. You know, you have a massive governing body crushing a local kebab shop.
It was terrible optically.
Right, but let's look at the actual mechanism of brand architecture here. It sounds crazy, but think of the DFB's brand like a massive water balloon.
Okay, I like this.
The DFB Bundesliga name holds all the value, right? The billion-dollar broadcast deals, the global recognition. That is the water inside the balloon.
Right.
If they allow a local kebab shop to legally poke a tiny pinhole in that balloon by associating with the DFB name for like a few €1,000 via a futsal sponsorship, a legal precedent is set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you allow one exception, the legal protection dissolves.
Yeah.
Suddenly, hundreds of companies realize they don't need to pay €300,000 to sponsor a lower-tier traditional football team. They can just pay €10,000 to a futsal team and legally plaster the official DFB logo all over their marketing.
Exactly. So the DFB wasn't necessarily punishing a kebab shop out of malice. They were desperately plugging a loophole that could cause massive brand dilution across their primary revenue streams.
Yeah, it's like a global beverage conglomerate sending a cease and desist to a neighborhood lemonade stand. That seems ridiculous, but legally they have to do it to protect the trademark.
Right. It makes complete logical sense, but it still feels terrible on a human level.
Oh, absolutely.
And, you know, that friction between a massive governing body protecting its billion-dollar corporate brand while local enthusiasts are literally scrambling for a few €1,000, it isn't just happening on social media or in courtrooms.
No, it's physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is physically manifesting in how German cities are built. Because while the DFB protects its intellectual property, local kids literally don't have a patch of concrete to play on.
Which brings us perfectly to this pivotal interview, the host's highlight from a Munich local paper with Matthew Jadivsky.
Right.
His entire thesis boils down to 4 urgent words: create public futsal courts.
Yeah, because we can talk about player transfers, influencer leagues, and brand dilution all day long, but literally none of it matters if the physical infrastructure for the sport doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Germany is currently in the grip of a severe infrastructure crisis when it comes to unstructured youth sports.
Yeah, let's look at the mechanism of urban planning in Germany compared to the rest of Europe.
Okay.
If you travel through Spain, the zoning laws and cultural priorities dictate that almost every neighborhood has a 20 by 40 meter public court.
Wow, every neighborhood.
Basically, yeah, anyone can just walk on and play.
Uh,
And France recognized futsal as a primary developmental tool for football, so they invested massive federal funds into building courts directly into their school systems.
that is so smart. But in Germany, modern city planning has completely marginalized teenagers.
Completely.
Think about how a city is developed today. I'd compare it to a smartphone with absolutely zero storage space left.
How do you mean?
Like, we just keep building fancy new apps, right?
Mhm.
These incredibly dense, high-yield residential housing developments. And maybe we throw in a pristine little 10 by 10 meter sandbox for toddlers just to satisfy some zoning requirement.
Right, the bare minimum.
Exactly. But we forget to leave any room for the operating system to actually breathe. There is no unstructured, unmonetized space for teenagers to just exist, gather, and play.
That is spot on. And the spaces that do exist are often actively hostile to the sport.
Yeah, the hosts point out that the old DFB courts that were built a generation ago are fundamentally flawed.
Yeah, they are way too small. And crucially, they are surrounded by tight physical walls.
Right.
Playing with walls completely changes the physics and tactics of the game.
Yeah.
It hinders the technical development of futsal skills, because those skills require open space, boundary lines, and the discipline of keeping the ball in play.
It's so frustrating. And this desperation for space is driving some wild innovations elsewhere. Like Daniel talks about looking up an address in Colombia on Google Maps.
Oh, this is crazy.
Yeah, he zooms in on this completely standard residential high-rise building, and right there on the roof is a full regulation-size futsal court.
Which is brilliant. But sadly, something like that would instantly be crushed by German zoning laws, noise ordinances, and liability concerns.
No, it would never survive the red tape.
Yeah.
But there are people fighting back locally. You have Jörg Jakobs down in the Hunsrück region.
Yeah.
He bypasses the massive costs of building a traditional indoor gym by constructing these cheap hybrid outdoor arenas.
Right, they're essentially open-air courts with a simple functional roof over them.
Exactly. And Bielefeld just opened a Freilufthal, which is an open-air hall built under a canopy. It provides an all-weather public space that doesn't require millions in heating and maintenance.
And honestly, these hybrid models are the only viable mechanism forward. Yeah. Because you cannot look at a generation of youth and tell them to go outside and play when you have legally zoned every square inch of the outside world into a paid parking lot, a private garden, or a commercial district.
It's so true. Now, that transition from physical space to digital space is where the original hosts take the conversation next.
Right, because if you don't have physical courts, your existence is heavily reliant on your digital footprint and, of course, the human capital of your roster.
Yeah. Which brings us to the squad building updates, specifically looking at TSV Weilemdorf as they prepare for the new season.
They are executing a very specific roster strategy right now.
They are. They are heavily holding on to their veterans. Like, the fans are thrilled that Ribeiro, who is just a massive physical presence, is extending his contract.
Huge news for them.
Yeah, and they're keeping older players like Sove, Dind, and the 34-year-old North Macedonian international Asanovsky.
But look at the why behind those roster moves, you know? Weilemdorf isn't just keeping Asanovsky because of his raw physical output. They are executing a classic bridge strategy.
Okay, unpack that.
Basically, you retain these aging anchor players to act as on-court coaches. Their primary mechanism of value is knowledge transfer.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they have incoming players like Kojic to add depth, but the real test is whether these veterans can successfully mentor the young, explosive talents on the squad, players like Rippi and Ferrari.
Right.
The entire season hinges on whether that older generation can elevate the younger generation before their own physical window closes.
And while the players are grinding through preseason conditioning, the digital marketing teams running these clubs are fighting for their lives in what Sebastian and Daniel call the summer slump.
Yes, the futsal dashboard segment. They track the social media metrics of the German scene.
And it is a super tight race for digital relevance right now. The Mr. Futsal page is sitting at roughly 9,400 followers, and they are constantly chasing GSV Dusseldorf, who are at 9,800.
Right, they're battling to claim the title of the second biggest futsal page in the country.
Yeah. Of course, both of them are still completely dwarfed by the official DFB page, which sits comfortably at around 26,000.
But looking at these feeds actually triggered this massive, passionate rant from the hosts about artificial intelligence.
Oh, yeah, they went off.
They noticed that to keep the content machine fed during the quiet summer months, amateur clubs are increasingly relying on AI image generators for their graphics.
Right.
And their critique was harsh. They argued that because these clubs refuse to pay for premium professional-tier AI tools, they're just typing basic prompts into free software.
Yeah, and the mechanical result of this is that every single team's Instagram feed is starting to look completely identical.
Exactly. You get the same hyper-polished lighting, the same weird plastic skin textures on the players, and the same generic stadium backgrounds.
It's uncanny valley stuff.
It creates this homogenized aesthetic that completely erases the unique, gritty identity of the individual clubs.
Okay, I hear their frustration about the plastic textures, I really do, but I absolutely have to defend the clubs here.
Really? Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, let's look at the actual mechanism of running a grassroots sports team. These clubs operate on zero budget.
That's true.
The social media manager is likely a volunteer who is also, washing the training bibs on the weekend. A few years ago, their only option was slapping some text on Microsoft Paint.
That is the reality of amateur sports logistics.
Exactly. And the algorithm doesn't care about your artistic integrity. If you don't post, you literally disappear from feeds.
Right.
So a generic, slightly plastic-looking AI matchday poster still triggers the Instagram algorithm significantly better than a plain text announcement.
It's a numbers game.
It is. It isn't about being lazy. It is a vital survival mechanism. Isn't it a miracle that underfunded clubs now have a free tool to generate graphic design? It's like complaining that the free pizza doesn't have artisanal truffles on it.
Okay, that is a very fair read of the situation. The AI might lack nuance, but it provides essential operational bandwidth.
Exactly. They're just keeping their heads above water.
But speaking of massive exposure, we have to end with a rumor that was dropped in the final moments of their discussion.
Yes, this is huge.
Because it is the kind of news that transcends the daily digital grind.
And if this is true, it literally changes everything for the sport in this country.
It is a highly credible, persistent rumor that the DFB is in the final stages of planning a massive winter test match to be hosted on German soil.
And the opponent?
The opponent they're bringing in is the reigning world champions, Brazil.
Germany against Brazil. In futsal.
Unbelievable.
I mean, we started this deep dive talking about Rodrigo and his 50 trophies in Brazil. Bringing that caliber of play to Germany, that isn't just a game.
No.
That is an event designed to violently pop the futsal bubble and force the mainstream sporting media to finally pay attention.
It really serves two mechanisms. First, it is the ultimate stress test for the German national program to see exactly how wide the technical gap is against the historical giants of the sport. And second, it is a massive statement of intent from the DFB that they are willing to leverage their brand power to create marquee futsal events.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we have unpacked a massive amount of information today. We have looked at how a billionaire can erase a club in Latvia overnight.
Yep.
We've analyzed the monetization mechanics of a 21-court influencer circus in Orlando.
Wow.
And we've debated the DFB's legal war with a local kebab shop.
It's been a lot.
But I want to pull all of this high-level theory right back down to the concrete reality of where you live.
The physical foundation of the sport.
Precisely. For you listening, tomorrow when you are walking to work or driving through your neighborhood, I want you to actively look at how the physical space around you is allocated.
Yeah, take a real look.
Try to count the spaces that are explicitly designed for unstructured, free teenage play. I don't mean a private gym with a membership fee.
No.
And I don't mean a fenced-in toddler sandbox. I mean a real, open, public expanse of concrete or turf where kids can just show up and kick a ball.
They're so rare.
They are. And if a society fundamentally refuses to physically build spaces for its youth to freely gather, what does that actually say about whose existence the city values? Are we just going to keep building fancy, profitable apps, or are we going to finally leave some room for the system to breathe? Think about it.